Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to tentatively re-enter the modern dating scene with the film Audition. If you enjoy living with all your limbs intact, subscribe to the channel for tips on how to keep doing that. Let's get to it. We open on a young lad bringing a diorama of well wishes to his sick mommy, and we observe that he did such a mediocre job that it results in her untimely death, leaving his father, Ioma, to devote himself to raising his son as a single dad. Flash forward 7 years and we find our boys fishing on the beach, talking technique and ladies and just generally keeping it real. Ioma puts on a clinic, bringing in the biggest catch of the day, and it makes a fine dinner, although absolutely riddled with bones. Shigeku explains the finer points of this species and how it changes sex in midlife. Then he casually drops a bomb.
なんか最近さ、ちょっとしょぼくれてんじゃない？地味っていうかさ。
And suggests his dad get remarried. A simple conversation, but Ioma is devastated. Ioma then finishes up another successful day at his company, but on his way out, an employee with whom he previously had a sexual tryst lets him know that she's getting married, and then patiently awaits a jealous reaction. Instead of finding a hobby, he proceeds to a bar where he engages with another sad, lonely businessman. And I have to be honest here, I'm devastated. He discusses his troubles with his friend Yoshikawa and determines the best course of action to inject joy into his life is to get wifed up. You know, to stay busy. He doesn't want one of those arranged marriages for weirdos, although he does have a list of ideal characteristics. Semi-young, talented, professional, just like his prior wife. Without consideration for his own desirability, they arrive at a natural conclusion.
一つだけ方法があるよ。オーディションやるんだよ。
Turns out Yoshikawa is in the movie industry, so they leverage his connections and resources to run a faux audition call for a pilot episode of a fake TV show to collect a stable of ladies. In the evening, after Ioma's housekeeper leaves, he begins poring over the various one-sheets that were submitted. With about 1,000 to choose from, he has to select 30 lucky ladies to be put through for an afternoon of invasive questioning, near-certain failure, and the privilege of being leered at by their potential future husband. This seems nearly impossible until he happens upon a candidate with cherubic features, a well-written composition with all the right qualifications, and just a bit of crazy. As he reads the harrowing tale of this fallen angel, his heart swells, as does his crotch. The auditions soon begin and the men playfully scroll through the ladies, asking strange questions and finding their talents to be somewhat limited. And they eventually arrive at number 28, the one Daddy's been waiting for his whole life. Asami comes in demure and polite, two top-tier characteristics, and her words are like honey to his ears. For the first time, Ioma pipes up, taking the reins from his experienced friend, and rather than asking pertinent questions, he shares his thoughts and ideas about who he thinks she is. They take a break where we confirm he's already decided on her. Yoshikawa has some bad vibes based on his professional expertise, however, and recommends proceeding with caution. At home, he sees his son off and then considers the advice he was given, wipes his ass with it, and calls Asami to see if she's available to talk at another time and location. As he gets all jazzed up about the date she doesn't know she's going on, Yoshikawa calls to inform him that her work history is suspect. Her prior claimed employer in the recording industry can't be verified because he disappeared a year ago. Armed with this, Ioma brings this up at their lunch date, and she immediately admits to the fabrications, implying she was trying to fake some clout in order to improve her chances at getting the role. He proves to be undeterred in his quest to build her into the perfect woman in his mind, and much to his delight, Asami requests another chat at a future date, if that's not too much to ask. At his next meeting with Yoshikawa, he confirms he's good to go. He doesn't even need to observe his new treasure on set, because his mind is made. Yoshikawa warns him about being hasty, especially with a seemingly perfect woman with a slippery past. But he contends that if you find a perfect woman, you gotta lock that down. Plus, he's a people person, a true student of life, and capable of managing this business. He still strongly suggests that Ioma simmer, just a bit. As he sleeps on this, she waits by the phone patiently and obediently. And he does wait, miserably, barely regarding his work mistress as Asami lives rent-free in his mind. Cured of his desire for other women, he ponders the phone intently as she nearly dies waiting. And when the phone rings, she cracks a perfectly innocent smile. And the bag moves. When they meet again, she sinks the claws in deep, and after a few formalities, he breaks the news that the role she auditioned for no longer exists. She takes this well, confirming that she's really just happy she had a chance to meet him. Ioma's heart sings as he feels he successfully transitioned his situation without looking like a total scumbag. On the cab ride home, she signals her willingness to hit the gas on this thing. With this confirmation, he decides it's now time to talk to his son about how sometimes when a man gets overwhelmed by loneliness, he contrives an elaborate scenario to trick a woman attention into liking him. Soon they're off on a weekend excursion where Ioma intends to make an honest woman out of Asami. While he nervously talks about museums, she gives him a look that leaves no real question about what's going down. Despite this, he continues jabbering about cheesecakes, forcing his demure porcelain doll to entice him further. He builds up his nerves and comes to bed with the maximum amount of clothing possible. She shows him her scars and then offers herself to him for the low price of absolute loyalty. Ioma wakes up disoriented with the phone ringing. It's the front desk calling to see if he's still staying, despite the fact that his partner left, which leaves him gutted. And she fully ghosted him, leaving so little front-end information behind that our boys are relegated to holding their dicks. Despite this, he's so compelled by the idea of her that he decides to continue his pursuit, even going so far as to declare his friendship with Yoshikawa toxic and cutting him out of his life. The only info he had was her old ballet academy and part-time job. He starts at the ballet, letting himself in and finding an old man in a wheelchair playing piano, so pretty normal. He finds Ioma's interest in Asami laughable, offering nothing more than cryptic implications. Through flashback, we see he was the one who administered her leg scars, and he also has some pretty sweet bear prosthetics. Next is the bar she indicated she worked at. A helpful neighbor wanders by and advises that it's been closed about a year now, after the owner was murdered. We learn the owner had been associated with some sort of music studio executive, and drugs were suspected in the foul play. Funny thing though, the lady was chopped up, but the police found some additional fingers and an ear. Isn't that silly? While he's doing this, we see the housekeeper leaving for the night, and then a lurker enters and navigates the house. It then turns from day to night, and Ioma returns home, fixing himself a stiff drink. He ponders how he got to this point, wishing his feral butterfly would return to him, but then he gets the brain tingles and begins to fall back. As he does so, we cycle back to their follow-up date and learn more about her turbulent childhood. She was raised by her dirty uncle and his wife, and they were abusive to her. Dance training was her only respite from the terror of everyday life. She was eventually sent back to live with her mom, but her disabled stepfather took out his resentments on her. Ioma is confronted in the dream by his dead wife, who is disturbed by Asami's presence. He's then in her apartment where she voraciously unpacks his package, but she transforms into his work mistress. After apologizing, she turns into his son's girlfriend, who he turns away from, tripping over the bag. He attempts to investigate it timidly with his foot, but that turns out to be a humble brag as the contents reveal itself to be some sort of partially dismembered man. The man is absolutely thrilled for the opportunity to dive into his meal of pre-masticated slop, and forms are switched again, indicating this is Asami's stepfather. Her other abuser then hobbles in on his fakies, and we learn that her life-saving dance training was actually administered by her uncle and was a form of torture for her. And then Ioma walks in on Piano Man as Asami unspools some razor wire and very tenderly and lovingly garrotes him into a state of ecstasy. Then his brain unpacks all the choices that led him here as he hits the ground. Whatever drug he's on leaves him conscious, blessing him with the privilege of witnessing his beloved Asami coldly prepare for Phase 3, the enjoyment of incalculable suffering. As she works, we learn this is revenge for general casting couch practices that involve taking advantage of young girls. Even though this was his first time and it wasn't even a real casting couch, he was just gonna give her his gift. With his body now prepped, she begins to delicately insert long needles into him while singing sweetly. Now, I have to say, it's very pleasing. She then discusses torturing his son and the importance of male loyalty while prepping his feet for removal. She takes a great deal of pleasure in her work, while her dirty uncle jerks his pud. But she's interrupted when Shigeku comes home. Ioma's forced to watch in horror as she pounces on him. But then he wakes up in the hotel where they first made love. She accepts his proposal, but that was a lifetime ago for him and he's kind of moved on emotionally. But turns out that dream was the dream, and this dream is actually reality as Shigeku gets chased around with a numbing mist. Only by happenstance does he manage to donkey kick her wisp-like body down the stairs, breaking her neck. Ioma's left to stare at her as his dumbass son asks a dumbass question.
親父、大丈夫か?
And as the police are called, she at least apologizes to him. I have a website set up where you can support the channel through donations or merch. I'd like to take a moment to give a huge thanks to my donors memorialized in the Hall of Headshots. Well, Audition certainly keeps the pace going. If you haven't caught this movie yet, you should see it. Like most of the other Asian films we've reviewed, this one is layered and nuanced. It's more like I Saw the Devil in that it's unwavering in its brutality and forgoes the humorous elements. Also, the brutality is well earned and not overbearing at all. It's more of a slow build to an explosive outburst. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.